What's up guys, Asian here again with another dungeon guide video. This time we'll be going over Elden Hollow 1. As usual, we'll be skipping over all the trash mob fights. Once we get to a boss, we will explain the boss mechanics, show the moves, and once we've done that, we'll skip over the rest of the boss fight so you guys aren't sitting through an incredibly long video. For this video, I will be showing you guys the perspective from a DPS standpoint. This dungeon's pretty straightforward, the bosses are not particularly tricky at all. The one thing to note though is if you're going after the achievements for this dungeon, there are two bosses that are very easily skippable, so I'll show you guys exactly where those bosses are, along with their mechanics and things like that. This is the first boss here. To get to him, you're going to need to fight through a bunch of trash mobs first. You can safely hit all the trash mobs without pulling him, so make sure you do that. Otherwise you're going to have to fight him and the trash mobs at the same time, and that can get quite tricky and troublesome, since you can't res if the trash mobs do happen to kill you. First attack you saw there, he will jump towards a random person, kind of slam his sword down. That does do damage to people around him, so kind of don't gather up too much in this fight. Then the other move he has is a very large AoE cleave attack, like that. That doesn't do that much damage. Healer can pretty much heal you through that damage. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This next boss is an optional boss, but it's very easy to miss. When you finish killing that previous boss, head to the right into this little alcove here. You'll find 3 Spriggans along with the optional boss there. She doesn't really have any mechanics beyond normal Spriggan mechanics, so she'll summon and add. She has a frontal AoE cone attack. So pretty standard. If you have fought Spriggans in the overworld, then she pretty much has the exact same mechanics. Moving right along here, we'll be skipping past the next couple of trash mob fights as we get on to the next boss. Next boss is a little bit tricky, and he does have a very hard-hitting attack that you need to be aware of. This is Chokethorn. This is the next boss you gotta face. He will pull in a random person if you're not within melee range. So ranged users, if he does happen to pull you in, just step back away. When he kind of goes back into his bulb like that, it means he's going to create a large AoE attack centered on himself. Tank can fairly consistently survive that, but DPS and healers should stay within range distance. Don't avoid that AoE circle. And that's pretty much the extent of the fight. There will be smaller strangler plants that pop up throughout the fight that heal the boss, but if you have good DPS, you should be able to ignore them. If your DPS is lacking though, you can kill those strangler plants if you want to. So again, range DPS and healer, if he does happen to pull you in, just take your time, step out back into your ranged positions. This is the next boss, also very easy to skip when you enter the large room. Just head to the left into this corner here. He'll kind of be wandering around. Comes with a bunch of ads, you can just burn them down. Boss himself doesn't have that many particular moves. He pretty much fights like a standard two-hander mob that you would face out anywhere else in the world. So he just has a heavy attack. He has a AoE centered around himself that the tank can interrupt. Fairly easy. Not too much to worry about. From here, if you need to do the quest, you need to clear out the room and wait for the quest NPCs to finish their thing. And this is the next boss, who's also very easily missed if you decide to take the left corridor instead of the one directly across from where you enter the room. Only has one real special attack. He has a frontal conal AoE that will draw you in towards him for a relatively heavy hit. Beyond that, he fights like your standard Alex. He will sometimes kind of flank around you. Nothing too much to worry about though. Once you defeat him, there are no more trash mob fights. You might have one or two outlets to deal with, but that's pretty much it. And this is the final boss. She has she's a little bit more mechanic heavy than the earlier bosses in this dungeon, but she's still a very, very simple boss to deal with. So she does not move from her initial position. She will create a red AoE circle around a random person. If you get caught in that circle, you will kind of get dragged into the ground. You can use break free to kind of get yourself out. Otherwise, you will take a lot of damage over time while you're in that red circle trying to get yourself out. That red circle will summon 4 skeleton ants. They will disappear after a period of time, but DPS, it's probably easier just to burn them down with AoE moves. The most dangerous move is the one you see there, which is an AoE attack centered on herself. It's pretty much a one-hit kill to DPS and healer. Tank, depending on your resistances, you should be able to survive it, but it's still a better idea just to get out of that circle to avoid the damage. Because even if you do have to resist for it, it'll still hit you for a lot. You probably take about 80% of your damage if you do get caught by that attack. Occasionally she will get a damage shield on herself. You can pretty much burn down that damage shield. She doesn't have anything funny about it, it's just a damage shield. And the last mechanic you need to watch out for is she will randomly target one person and launch a poison bolt at that person. If your healer is a Templar and they have the healing circle that has the Purify synergy, he should throw that down, synergize with that Purify to get rid of the poison damage over time. The poison damage over time is fairly damaging. It's it's fairly dangerous for DPS and healer. Beyond that, a pretty straightforward fight. It's a fairly long fight. She has quite a lot of health, and the damage she doesn't make it any better. Once you kill her, if you are doing the quest, they were kind of stay where you are, right where she dies, enter the portal, and avoid the growing darkness that sort of envelops the room, because you will actually die from that. That's it for this video. Hope it helps. See you guys in the next dungeon.